Cheers to that, man.
Yeah, man.
So we're one of the cooler Starbucks around, for sure. We're in this conference room that they have, and it's really pretty legit. Let us know who's there. Y'all leave a comment. I'm here with my buddy Hamilton Perkins. I want him to share his story with you guys here in a minute, but let us know who you are, where you're from, and Hamilton, yeah, why don't you tell a little bit about your story. I've known Hamilton for probably, 3 years or so?
Absolutely.
And great guy.
Maybe longer.
Yeah.
I like where you got yours. I feel like mine needs to go back. Maybe I should put it on the chair.
Okay, yeah, you want to throw it back a little bit? All right, so he's going to do that. And yeah, real quick, Hamilton, he's a really cool guy who launched a bag company that's got a really inspiring story, just ran a Kickstarter for it, and more than doubled what he was asking for, which is awesome. Proud of the guy. And he's worked really hard. He's got a bunch of awesome, great media contacts, and I think he can really be helpful for a lot of folks looking to maybe start their own businesses, or even looking for additional media coverage and things like that. He's got a bunch of resources for that kind of stuff. So yeah, Hamilton, take over. Why don't you share about your story, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks so much again for having me, Chris.
Yeah,
it's
man.
really been solving a personal problem first. Couldn't find a bag that I could be proud to carry, and the bag that I came up with was this one here. It's made out of recycled plastic bottles. Inside is lined with vinyl from repurposed billboards, and it was an evolution. I basically got my start. I worked in banking for a number of years. I didn't really start out always knowing I was going to be an entrepreneur. Basically took time to basically learn the consumer bank, and then got really good at sales there, and then I worked in the commercial bank.
Right.
And, learned a lot about commercial banking.
Entrepreneur, you're fielding phone calls all times of the day.
And from there, I guess I identify a little bit more with entrepreneurship, business owners, and I ended up going back to business school.
Right.
Went to William and Mary. We had some talks back then when
man.
I was kind of going really hard. I mean, working my day job, trying to do what I can to keep the brand progressing ahead, and still trying to keep up with all my classes. And
right. And that's like a kind of similar to the struggle that a lot of folks in the restaurant industry face with, you have it's not a 40-hour a week job. You're there for 60 or 70 or 80, and it's, kind of like you, it's
Exactly.
you're getting paid salary for one job, but then you also you're in grad school and you're doing this side hustle trying to get the bags up and running, and it's a lot, man. I know things weren't always easy to get it to market. What would you tell somebody that's kind of having in that struggle right now, that's maybe trying to open up a food truck or a restaurant or a catering company or something like that?
I would say start with your strengths. If you've got something that you're good at, whether that's going and knocking on doors, knocking on everybody's door that sells whatever your food truck sells, or if you have a product, at least kind of go where you don't have to spend a lot. I'd say in the beginning, you should be able to kind of hustle your way at least to your first few sales. I wouldn't get too fancy and try to do too much on online or anything. Just try to go out and sell your first product, and then you can always from there kind of on the back end you can build out how you might want it to look and the branding and all of those things.
Yeah, I think it also helps too, to find some people that have already done it before and figure out what they've been successful at doing.
Absolutely.
And most people, especially in that,
and that's what I want to ask you about, is kind of who have been your mentors? Who have you looked up to?
For me,
if anybody.
Yeah, I mean, it's a number of people. I mean, starting with my father, who has been an incredible role model for my whole family. But aside from that, I didn't really have a kitchen mentor. I was curious. I kind of learned by myself. Sure, I had a couple chefs, Bobby Holly in Atlanta, who kind of took me under his wing for a couple of summers, but not somebody that I would really kind of fall back on. But in terms of what I'm doing now with being able to build a brand and monetize it and things like that, I would definitely say Gary Vaynerchuk. I got an opportunity to work at an event with him a year and a half ago, which is really inspiring. If anyone out there is is interested in an awesome book, check out Gary Vee's Crush It, which was his first book and kind of brought him to fame. So that's kind of all about like hustle, go after your passion, make it happen, and that's kind of been my mantra really since. But aside from that, I'm trying to think who else. Probably Gary, Seth Godin, big time marketer who's just really brilliant.
Purple Cow, right?
Purple Cow.
Yeah.
He's got 14, 15. He's got a bunch of bestsellers. Always thinking outside the box. And now I'm getting a phone call too. But we'll let that keep going. But so people that are just kind of pushing the envelope, or I'm the cool thing about where we live like now today with like the internet. He has his phone here, I have mine here, and it's that we can find somebody online and we can find all their material and learn from them or read their books and be in their back pocket, and they can be our mentor, virtually from across the country or world, versus having to be like face to face like normal people would back in the day.
What was the first point in life that you knew that you wanted to kind of be an entrepreneur? I mean, I know for me, like what I was saying is I didn't always necessarily know. I knew that I was going to validate over time and that I would probably get there. But for you, like, was there a moment in your background or just when you were making a certain dish where you just said, not only can I do this for myself, I can do this for other people?
Yeah, well, I think it's always been in my blood, the cooking part of it. I kept coming back to it from high school, college, and I kind of felt like I had to go the traditional route with my dad kind of being a financial planner. I felt like I had to kind of go that route, but I kept coming back to cooking, but really in terms of being an entrepreneur and really wanting to work for myself, that's what it is more than anything for me, is being able to make my own hours, be able to work and not have to report to anybody, be able to do the work that I want to do. When I was 13, my first job was at Camp Grasshopper in Atlanta, and it was a bunch of little kids, and for the week I made $35 a week. That's $7 a day for 5 days, and I'm a 13-year-old, so that's like grass money, I guess. The next summer, I was 14, 1996, and the Olympics were in Atlanta, and the bike race, Lance Armstrong and all them came right down our street. So my brother and I, it was 2 or 3 different days. We went and bought a bunch of Powerade, a bunch of water. Just went out and hustled and sold it all. Made about 3 times that much in 2 days as I did the whole summer, the summer before. So that was when I was like, I can do this by myself, and I don't need somebody else's permission to kind of do this. And then just kind of keep falling back into it, and then once I had a crappy consulting job that I just did not like, I knew that, all right, I need to figure something out and find a way to work for myself.
Did you see it the way it is today? Like, did you think that it was going to look like it does now, as far as being in business for yourself and just everything that you're doing with your book? And I mean, is all of this kind of like where you saw yourself eventually going?
Yeah, I don't know if anybody can project that or see that.
Yep.
There's like, what a lot of people don't understand is, like, all right, so like you write a book, you have, I'm doing consulting and recently finished a consulting menu for a taqueria that's opening up here in town, and a bunch of different projects. Plus, there's the marketing side of keeping the brand going. And everybody here on Facebook knows I'm like interacting all the time. I'm doing these, I'm commenting on it with everybody, and it's a lot of work. Like you have your email list and things like that, and just keeping up. And I don't think I realized how hands-on and so much of the different pieces of the puzzle that I would be. It's challenging. I mean, it's challenging. It's not for everybody, and it's not like 5 o'clock's here, I'm done working. But it's all right now. 5 o'clock, or for me, it's like now it's 10 o'clock when everybody's starting to go to sleep. There's no more Twitter. There's no more Twitter like updates. There's no more Facebook updates. Now I can get some work done. What about you, though?
Well,
is it kind of how you envisioned it, or?
I would say no, because most of the tools, I mean, this thing, this wasn't here, 10,
right.
15 years ago.
That's kind of what I was getting at with like projecting, yeah, exactly.
But the idea, or just the service, the product, all of that was. So,
yeah.
I think the amount of forward-looking like activity, I guess the way I think about it, that I'm having to kind of spend time working on is like I would have never envisioned that this is what it looks like. Like I understand that you have to stay ahead, you have to think about trends, or even just like recognize Instagram has, what is it, 500 million users,
right.
or Snapchat has 300 million users, billions of people on Facebook, and how that kind of impacts your business. How do you actually
how you connect with those networks? Yeah.
So I do want to talk to you about marketing, because you've had a lot of success with your TED Talks and your book. I mean, what types of things have you found to be like, I guess, most helpful? Was it the email list? Was it is it content creation that you're kind of owning? What's like the one thing or a couple things that you would say just are really effective for you?
Yeah, I would say that it starts out, so like for anyone starting out, if you're watching and you want to build your own personal chef brand, which I'm actually in the process of starting a chef branding academy. If you want to shoot me a message down below and I'll send you some information about it. But if you're starting your own brand, I think if you're starting a company, you need to first kind of work on your own brand so that people know kind of what you're about, what you represent. So for me, that meant doing the writing. I think it's important to do like you said, go after your strengths. So for me, I'm a writer. Naturally, things like Medium make a lot of sense for me. The speaking didn't come as naturally, but I've been done a lot of TV, so I was able to kind of learn the whole speaking side of things too. I think more than anything, if anyone out there, I think it's just being real. I think it's being authentic, whether it's a personal brand or like a brand like your bags. Yes. I mean, telling the true story of what it is, and not trying to make it you yourself or myself sound like we're better or bigger deal than we are. Because last night I put like I just had a bad kind of crappy day, and I know a lot of times y'all see that I'm positive and up trying to be uplifting and things like that, but that's part of me being human too. And you do things like that and people can kind of connect with you a little bit more. And that's when it kind of started. When I wrote that Dear Chefs article, the reason why that resonated with so many people, 100,000 people read it the first day it went viral, because I was able to kind of tap into that very human part of people in general, not just even cooks, but like I'm in the struggle and my family doesn't understand what I'm doing, and whether they're artists or cooks or whatever. And then Facebook has clearly been successful for me, and I have a great following here, all you guys. But yeah, I think it's using all the tools, figuring out which ones work for you, and then finding different ways in the different platforms to market, the bags. And like you and I, we put like the picture on Instagram of me with the bag, things like that. And then finding things. I think you've done a great job. Maybe you talk about also media. He had Aaron Huffington email him back about featuring him on the Huffington Post.
Blogger.
Yeah, exactly. So you were in Washington Post. I linked you up with Upworthy. I'm not sure if anything's working there, but yeah, talk to them a little bit about getting media, and maybe somebody here is looking to try and get in with their local media or something like that.
Yeah, I think what it goes down to, or comes down to, is probably understanding who you're reaching out to and really being deliberate in your segmentation. The way I communicate with Fast Company magazine versus a blogger that's like very niche on social responsibility, or entrepreneurship, is like, it's got to kind of fit within what's going on. And
right.
It's almost like the differences between B2B and B2C, and how you kind of position things. And I think
knowing your audience,
segmenting, and not really taking like like the super soaker approach.
Right.
And really taking time, finding articles that maybe someone's already written about, and seeing yourself in that article or seeing your company in that article, and kind of thinking about how that would fit within whether it's a theme or if it's something that's happening, and the same thing for blog posts, and just trying to understand the content strategy for the blogger. If it's someone that's already covering, in our case, something that's a socially responsible product. If it's a theme on platform,
or get some good PR or press. What would you how would you just email them, or are there certain things you can kind of put out there you think that would kind of attract them?
It's probably not as intuitive, but the first thing I would say is start in your personal network. Start with your friends and family. Start at that grassroots level.
Yeah.
And from there, once you've gotten at least the people that you are closest with sort of sharing, talking about your event or your new product launch, then you can sort of reach out and say, look, this is kind of what we've done. Make a call to action in your messaging really clear and simple. Maybe one link, if anything, in that message, and just kind of position it. And if you do want to know a little bit more about like our process, kind of what we've done and have been successful with. What we've kind of built out is an in-house agency, HPC studio, and what that does is, that kind of manages Hamilton Perkins Collection as the parent, and kind of keeps us, on track, getting the word out, spreading the news, and then doing other creative ventures, joint ventures where we're basically just giving the spotlight, trying to add as much value.
They're consistent with the brand.
Exactly.
Very cool. Let me see if there's any other questions that.
I've got a question.
Yeah.
What do you think about sort of the future of kind of social responsibility? Because, I think where we are right now is at an interesting place, because 9 times out of 10, we're still buying products based on sort of the immediate gratification of that product. I think when you start to think about surveys and you see customer research, you'll find that people are becoming more open to, an alternative. Maybe it's an online only alternative. Maybe it's a company that you just think it's really cool, and you consider them even if they're not in your local mall, or if it's not on Amazon.com. Right. So, do you think that over time that more and more people are going to be open to trying, that online brand that, they only do, this one thing or these couple things, and over time they sort of compete with like maybe another household name in that same
right.
category? How do you kind of think about that as it relates to socially responsible products that, whether they're the same price or potentially slightly more expensive, right. How will that play out in the future?
I think it's actually very similar to what's happening with the food scene. Mm-hmm. In the last 10, 15 years, let's say, a lot more organic, a lot more free-range chickens, grass-fed beef, the vegan movement, vegetarian movement, paleo, things like that. A lot more discriminating. And before, like, I know for a fact, like, my parents, they had like very simplistic things that everyone else in America had, or at least in their town, like wherever you are in America, kind of used to eating. And now, like, everybody's more willing to try to kind of step outside the box and try new things, and are more conscious, I think, not only about their health, but also of like the environment and doing right by. I think we all realize we've kind of totally effed like the environment. It's like been this downward spiral, and we need to figure something out before we all like implode or something. So I think people are a lot more conscious about those types of things, and I think that, like food, I think people are more willing now versus 10 or 15 years ago to pay that extra, maybe it's an extra 15% for a product that is socially responsible, like yours. I'm not even sure that you explained the bag itself. It's very cool. So I'm going to explain it a little bit because I love talking about it. The outside of the bag is made from recycled plastic bottles that are harvested in Haiti. So there's jobs that are created there, and then the inside is repurposed billboards. So each bag has a unique inside that's pretty cool. and it's all it's very socially responsible. What else am I missing there?
No, I mean, you did a great job. I think one thing that I was really trying to find was something that was personal and had a custom feel to it.
And like show the side zipper too. Sorry to interrupt you.
So
this is like the coolest. I don't know why. This is like the coolest part of the bag to me. Is this you have a duffel bag, right?
It is a duffel and it's also a backpack. And what you're basically getting here is something that's completely unique. This is another duffel.
But yeah, so it zips down the sides.
Each bag has repurposed billboard vinyl on the inside. So, if you can put this out the way. If you can imagine a billboard that has been on the side of the road, or it's basically getting ready to hit a landfill or getting ready to be thrown in the trash, it's now soaked up, washed down, and it's used as a lining for the bag. And the three-way zipper system is also like about easier access.
Genius. It's genius.
Being able to
quick. You have a pair of socks on the bottom of your bag and you just simply get down there without screwing everything up. I love that, man. Especially with traveling and everything. Man, I love it.
And the way we kind of came up with the ideas were, basically through crowd sourcing. Basically, we interviewed, tons of people that travel. We had some prospective customers, and we just talked to them about what are some things that you might be interested in. Another thing was, can it turn, into a different bag? Can it be a backpack, or can it just be a duffel? So it has concealable straps, so you can basically make it a duffel, and then you're on your way. The other thing is just the discovery part, which I like to highlight that a little bit. You don't necessarily know what you're going to get in terms of the lining as far as design, and that's something that is kind of interesting. I mean, it's about discovery, it's about finding something new, but it keeps that story going about kind of why the product matters, why the purpose is there,
right?
And it just kind of goes back to the idea of making something that matters,
right? And then telling that in a way that people will get it. Yeah, I mean, so I have a question for you that I know people watching can probably relate to. So as a chef myself and having created menus and owning my own restaurant, you make this menu and you have this delicious food and it's yours and you want everybody to enjoy it your way, but then at the same time you need to kind of listen to the market too. And I know before you were kind of more like the higher end luxury, $400 or $500 bags. Talk about that pivot for you, and maybe was it listening to the market and seeing a need to be filled, and how that could maybe apply to somebody with in a restaurant or just in general with a product that they're trying to bring to market.
Yeah. So going way back. I was a retailer. I worked in, small boutiques, malls. I did interior design. I did a lot of, the different parts of the fashion world, basically. But, I still kind of consider myself kind of an outsider when it comes to creating. I did have an internship. I interned at a startup luggage company. They were selling luxury goods. They were making them in Costa Rica. And, out of that experience, I basically started making bags for myself and selling them to friends and family, small businesses. And at that point, I think I noticed that there was a bigger problem, and I felt like, the bags that I wanted to carry were going to have to be something that I could really be, passionate about, something that I really could, really just be proud to carry. And
right.
From a standpoint of timing, I mean, I went back to business school. I was mentioning, I was on a trip. Was looking for a bag that I could carry. I was going to the other side of the world, and I felt like I wanted something that would help me stand out, something that would really reflect my values. Something that was going to be personalized and custom, because I had done a lot of custom work before that time, and I was trying to find a way to do that within what this textile could offer, and that's how the billboard idea came together.
Yeah.
Was, if you could offer a unique bag every time, while you're still helping the environment and, you're also raising awareness on social issues, then you've kind of got a full service product that is sustainable not only, but it's over the next 100 years would make a lot of sense for kind of where the experts expect us to be in terms of like peak waste levels and things of that nature. So it was about like evolving as kind of an individual and just having an idea. I mean, I've always had like the same sort of core values about like how I thought about business and what I would want business to represent, but seeing a lot of, like, for example, the B Corporation movement and what happens in that community, being a customer of a lot of those companies and not necessarily knowing a lot about like the impact assessment that these companies actually have to go through and like how you have to score and some of the things you have to do in terms of third-party verification to make sure that you're sort of adding value, measuring value, and being accountable for that value. And it's all like, I think that going back to my previous question to you, I feel like going forward, a lot of companies are going to be held to a certain level of standard that, say, for example, if it comes down to it, most people will kind of choose the company that has that care in mind, and that they take more, of a thoughtful approach to whatever it is they produce.
Yeah, well, and that's, I mean, I think going forward, kind of like what Seth Godin actually talks a lot about is if it's a fight over price, then like it's just a race to the bottom. So how does my food distinguish itself from the restaurant that's right next door or the bag company that's very similar, that could be very similar? So I have very unique attributes, kind of like with a restaurant. Like, what's your unique value proposition? And obviously, you have some very cool stuff. And by highlighting these things and having this being part of what the brand represents, it shows people like what you're about and what the company's about. And that's why I try and tell so many people with restaurants. I'm right now very frustrated consulting with this one restaurant group because I'm like, hey guys, you're buying this farm to table, or you're buying this farmers market produce. Let's talk about it and tell their stories through our social media, so that maybe people can connect your food more with the local farms and the local, the Chesapeake Bay and things like that. And it's like, otherwise you're just a restaurant that has okay food, but if you can give people another, something to latch onto, then I think it makes it a lot more compelling, and it gives people they're like, oh, this is good food, and now this is cool too. Now I'm an ambassador for your brand, and that's kind of what, I mean, like you can tell I am. Like, there's a lot. It's not only a cool bag and it looks good, but there's some cool. I mean, you're creating jobs and helping the planet. I mean, it's very cool stuff. So yeah, I dig it, man.
Yeah, no, and I think the steps that large corporations have taken in the last 10 years even, I mean, it's really opened the door for, I think, this kind of work, and really continuing to sort of walk through that door and continue to bring awareness through like very practical product or service. Now the space is really getting more momentum, more attention. So we're real grateful that basically we have our core group of audience. You mentioned Kickstarter. We had a very successful launch there, and now it's been just expanding that reach and getting our product into the hands of all the backers, which is amazing to just see the response, and to have folks that are out there that they're going to carry the bag, and they're going to carry it, and they're going to tell that story.
Right.
That's the power of kind of you're even starting
for standing for something too.
Right. And even starting from kind of a humble place, like a very a personal place, and then from there you never know who knows who.
Right.
Like you said, there may be someone that, whether they if they are a buyer or a writer
or somebody watching this, their wife that works for whatever company, and
absolutely
he tells her,
I mean, you never know how things sort of work out, and that's really interesting.
One more question for you, and I think my phone's probably close to dying.
Yeah, mine probably too.
But and it's probably overheating too. Anybody who's watching my live streams know that my phone overheats after I think it's 30 minutes.
Trying to get the periscope up, but couldn't get it.
But so, what would you tell somebody? Yeah, one of my favorite musicians is this guy Stephen Kellogg, and he's one of those. He's not like a top musician, and he's not like the local guy that plays in the local bar. He's in between. Makes enough money to have a band that travels around the country and puts out good music. Has 7 or 8 albums, but still not heard that much. And I was listening to actually a documentary he had last night, and he was talking about. He's like, sometimes I feel like I shouldn't do this, or the sense tells me I shouldn't, and so I think about maybe getting a real job to support my family. He has 4 kids, and he's like, then I realized I can't. He's like, I'm utterly compelled to do this work, and that's how I am with this, with the book stuff. Was there ever a time, or if the Kickstarter didn't work, which was very successful, but people ask me well, at what point would you hang it up and maybe try and do something else? And I think somebody asked a question kind of very similar. He's like, his 6th year and he hadn't gotten as far along as he thought. At what point do you kind of hang it up and try something else?
Bless you. I would say, don't give up. I mean, sometimes it takes 20 years to make it happen. I've heard some stories. I haven't read as many books as I'd like to, or listened to them on audio, but some of the staple products that I use on a daily basis, consumer products. The founders and some of the folks that have really built huge businesses.
Have you heard of the Pandora story?
I haven't.
I'm not gonna tell the whole story, but long story short, this guy, he couldn't get a job. He was a musician. He found these attributes, like we all use Pandora, we have before probably. While they were trying to get it to market for 2.5 years, he had almost 50 employees that didn't receive any payment that were part of the mission. And then they got a $9 million check. The next day they had an all-staff meeting. He handed out $2 million worth of checks to everybody and said, "Here we go, we made it." Anyway, sorry, but
no, that's exactly
that.
And I think the truth is, it's you never know how close you really are to that point. And the guess is, if you quit, you're gonna quit very close to where you would have had that moment or that payoff,
like the next day or the next week or whatever. Yeah.
And that's probably something that there's so many different angles you can kind of take on it. But my thing is, if it's 2 years, keep at it. 6 years, keep at it. If it's 10 years, keep at it. 10,000 hours, keep at it.
And I think you can still you might have to have a side job, or you might have to do something else to supplement your income. But if it's important to you and you get enjoyment out of the work anyway, then you might as well just keep doing it, as long as you can pay the bills in some other capacity.
If you look at folks that are really great, a lot of them, they started super early, and we learn about them. They start at 2, they start at 4, whether if it's dancing, if it's investing, if it's Beyonce, or if it's Warren Buffett. These people started doing amazing things and putting in work at young ages. And I didn't know who Warren Buffett was until he was an adult. I didn't know who Beyonce was until she was an adult. And that's just an idea of how long it takes. It could take you. It could be your life's work, and it would be worth it if that makes sense.
And one more thing, I can't remember if I did a recent video on this or what, but I was, I get this question asked a lot of so Chris, when did you make it? When do you feel like you'd made it? And it's I don't really know if there's an answer to that question, because every time you feel it's the first article that went viral, the first TED Talk or whatever, it's once you feel I gave a talk 2 days ago on it over down the street. But it's every time you feel you've made it, it's but it's maybe I'm chasing the wrong thing. So it's it's not I've ever really made it. It's more of a bridge that you're putting a rung on every single step you're taking, and over time all these different rungs equate to this bridge that takes you from one place to the next.
And I'll approach your question from a different way, also, just to kind of
You
wrap.
probably have like a minute, maybe two.
Okay.
Because I'm about to die here.
Tell me, what would you be doing if you weren't doing what you're doing right now? How would you be spending your time? What would you be doing?
I think I would probably love to have. And this is just off the top of my head. Probably have been I love this kind of coaching type of stuff where you're helping people work through problems. I probably would have played college basketball, somewhere small, and then been like a graduate assistant, and then maybe been like a coach in that capacity. Yeah, something like that. What about you? Would you just keep doing the financing?
I probably would. I probably,
Not a bad fallback.
Yeah, I'd probably be doing something like and I don't know a lot about it, but more in, like the lending, like the micro lend, like I'd be trying to probably find a way to, expand, like, whether it was like, expanding impact investing or like doing something sort of like, in that world, but
Something that's making a difference.
yeah, exactly. But I'm really 100% committed to
Yeah, for sure, man. And yeah, for anyone out there in the struggle, just keep going. Like, I mean, for him, it's been a process. For me, it's been a process. And once you start making, all you need is just a little bit of momentum, and then the momentum starts putting a little bit of wind behind you, and then you start feeling a lot better about it. And so just keep fighting. And I'm here. Hamilton Perkins Collection is
Instagram, you can follow us. It's at Hamilton Perkins. Snapchat, same thing, at Hamilton Perkins. Facebook.com.
and then I think the products are available on not on Kickstarter but on
Indiegogo. Link in the bio on Instagram.
Cool. All right, guys. Thank y'all for hanging out, watching. And if there's any questions, we'll either Hamilton or I will get to them in the comments.
Thanks so much for doing this, Chris. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. That was fun.